The air hung thick with the metallic tang of recycled water and the sharper scent of fear. Lieutenant Jessica wiped condensation from her visor, the gesture doing little to clear the lingering haze of disorientation. The wrecked atmospheric processor loomed before them, a skeletal ruin against the perpetual twilight of New Eden. It had been a ghost town when initiative scouts first landed, but now it felt haunted. Report. Jess's voice was clipped, professional, a deliberate shield against the knot of anxiety tightening in her chest. Sergeant Major Thorne stood a few paces ahead, his shoulders square, posture impeccable. Yet, his eyes Jessa couldn't read them. They were distant, too still, reflecting the sickly green glow emanating from the central plaza. Structural integrity of the processor is compromised, Thorne said, his voice unnaturally level. Minimal salvage potential. We know that, Sergeant Major, Jessa snapped, instantly regretting her sharpness. Thorne hadn't been himself since Alpha and lost contact with Colmy. Something was affecting him, something beyond simple stress. She's seen it in the faint tremor in his hand, the almost imperceptible stiffness in his gait. Raise, sensor sweep, silver perimeter security, let's keep a tight cordon. Raise, barely out of training, fumbled with his scanner, his youthful face pale in the dim light. Anything, Raise? Jessa prompted. Negative, Lieutenant. Sender background, radiation. No unusual energy signatures, wait. Just a fluctuation. He frowned, adjusting the scanner. It's localized to the central plaza. Readings off the scale. Silver, a veteran with a weary stoicism etched into his features, circled the perimeter, his pulse rifle held at the ready. Quiet out here, Lieutenant. Too quiet. Feels like something's watching us. The central plaza was dominated by a monolithic structure. It wasn't natural. The geometry was all wrong, the surface an unsettling obsidian black that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. Strange, swirling symbols were etched into its surface, an alien language that stirred a primal unease in Jessa's mind. The air around the monolith shimmered with an almost tangible energy. What do you think, Sergeant Major? Jessa asked, deliberately keeping her tone neutral. Anything familiar? Thorne stared at the monolith, his expression unreadable. It's beautiful, he murmured, the word sounding alien on his tongue. Jessa's stomach clenched. That wasn't Thorne. Thorne would have catalogued it, assessed it, and moved on. He wouldn't have called it beautiful. Sergeant Major, she pressed, her voice sharper this time. He didn't respond, seemingly lost in his own world. Jessa noticed a faint tremor in his lower lip, a subtle twitch he'd never seen before. Suddenly, a blood-curdling screech ripped through the silence. Ree screamed, dropping his scanner. Xenos! Silver barked, leveling his rifle. Creatures emerged from the surrounding forest, grotesque parodies of humanoid form. Their skin was a sickly grey-green, their eyes black pits of malice. They moved with a disturbing fluidity, their limbs contorting at impossible angles. Engage! Jessa yelled, bringing her pulse rifle to bear. The plaza erupted in a chaotic ballet of laser fire and alien screams. Silver, a whirlwind of controlled aggression, cut down several Xenos with brutal efficiency. Raise, despite his initial panic, managed to contribute to the defense, though his aim was shaky. Jessa focused on eliminating the immediate threat, her movements precise, her focus unwavering. Yet, her eyes kept straying back to Thorne. He stood motionless amidst the chaos, seemingly oblivious to the battle raging around him. He wasn't firing his rifle. He wasn't dodging the Xeno attacks. He was simply watching. Sergeant Major, get with it, she shouted over the din of battle. He turned slowly towards her, his eyes no longer distant, but intensely focused. A strange, unsettling smile stretched across his face. There is no need for violence, Lieutenant, he said, his voice a smooth, almost hypnotic drone. They are part of the whole. The whole? What are you talking about? Jessa felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. The air seemed to thicken, pressing down on her chest. She felt a strange compulsion to understand what he was saying, to join him. Ray's cry out, clutching his arm. A Xeno had broken through the perimeter, raking its claws across his flesh. Raise! Jessa rushed to his side, administering first aid. The Xeno lunged again, but Silver intercepted it, firing a volley of laser blasts. Lieutenant, get out of here! Silver yelled. Something's wrong with Thorne. Jessa looked back at Thorne. He was approaching the monolith, his movements graceful, almost ethereal. He raised his hand, as if in greeting, and the monolith pulsed with an even brighter green light. The symbols on its surface seemed to writhe and twist, forming new, even more disturbing patterns. She felt a sharp pain in her head, a searing pressure behind her eyes. Images flooded her mind, alien landscapes, swirling nebulae, vast, incomprehensible structures that dwarfed anything she had ever seen. A voice echoed in her mind, asked in ancient, speaking in a language she didn't understand, yet somehow comprehended. A promise of knowledge, of power, of unity. "Lieutenant," Silver's voice was frantic, pulling her back to reality. "We need to move. Now." Jessa stumbled to her feet, her legs shaky, her mind reeling. She looked back at Thorne, who was now standing directly in front of the monolith, his eyes closed, his face bathed in the otherworldly light. He looked peaceful, transformed. "Sergeant Major," she cried out one last time, her voice cracking with desperation. He didn't respond. He simply stood there, a silent Sentinel guarding a gateway to something else. "Let's go." Silver grabbed her arm, pulling her towards the initiative shuttle. They reached the shuttle, the rotors churning to life. Jessa glanced back one last time. The monolith pulsed, casting a long, green shadow that stretched across the plaza. Thorne stood bathed in the light, a serene smile on his face. The xenos ceased their attack, their eyes fixed on the monolith. The entire colony seemed to hold its breath. "Initiative shuttle, this is Lieutenant Chen, requesting immediate evac. We have a situation." The pilot's voice crackled over the comms. "Lieutenant, what's happening?" Jessa opened her mouth to respond, but the words wouldn't come. A wave of dizziness overwhelmed her, a crushing weight pressing down on her skull. The last thing she saw was Thorne's serene, smiling face, framed by the emerald glow of the monolith. Then everything went black. "Lieutenant Chan, do you copy? Lieutenant Chan?" The static filled the silence. "Priority 1 warning. Colony New Eden compromised. Repeat, Colony New Eden compromised. All initiative personnel stand down. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. End transmission."